All right, I'm back and we are recording and we're live. We're live streaming. So I want to thank you. My name is Nora. I am with Travel Leaders and I want to introduce David Semerad, who's here from Collette Vacations today. And
Afternoon.
he's going to be taking us through Collette Vacations in Ireland in specific. And please feel free to share any questions you might have in the chat or in the Q&A. I'll be moderating those and we'll kind of talk through any questions you might have. But I do want to thank you all for joining us. And David, you too, thank you for your time. I'm going to turn it right over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nora. It's a pleasure working with you. And it's a pleasure working with Travel Leaders. Just remember this one thing that's really important for everyone to remember. It doesn't cost you any extra money to work with a travel agent. So there is no benefit to you coming directly to any company. In fact, you actually have doubled the service and doubled the customer support if you work with Travel Leaders, who are arguably some of the best travel professionals in the industry. So with that being said, my name is David Semerad. I am the Business Development Manager for Collette Travel. We have been around for 102 years, if you can believe it. And you may have seen us on a Wheel of Fortune. We oftentimes have these fabulous prizes that Pat and Vanna talk about. But with that being said, we will be talking about some of those fantastic trips to Ireland. And I've gathered just a handful of tours that we're going to be talking about today. But I think most importantly, considering the fact that we're still within a pandemic, we're going to also be talking about the elephant in the room as to what exactly we're doing as a tour company to keep you as a traveler safe, because that is first and foremost our ultimate goal, is to make sure that you enjoy yourself, but also that you are safe while you're doing so. So with that being said, again, Collette Travel has been around for 102 years. We're a company based on the East Coast in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, but I am the business development manager for North Dakota, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. We've been working with Travel Leaders for years and years. They are truly some of the best in the industry. Since the pandemic has begun about a year ago, we as a company have actually been operating, if you can believe it. We anticipate this year things getting more back to normal in approximately April and beyond. Since Governor Walz came out and indicated that by April, most adults should be vaccinated, this is very positive news, not just for the travel industry, but for the Minnesota travel industry, which is awesome. Some of the things that you can benefit from by traveling with Collette and Travel Leaders is our cancel for any reason travel waiver. We are practicing pre-tour health screenings, but this is more of piggybacking on what the airline industry is doing and what the CDC guidelines are suggesting for operating. We also have a private sedan service that not only is a great way to start a tour, but it's also a little bit safer for you so that you don't interact with as many people as you're going to and from the airport. And then of course the air travel. Needless to say, we need to hop in a plane to get to Ireland. And the last time I was at the airport was in December, and it was a real seamless experience. And I would suggest it to everyone, especially as more and more people are getting vaccinated. And as more and more of us have just routinely covered our faces with the masks as the CDC prescribes, but also just taking this seriously so that we can all get back to normal sooner than later. While you're on the tour, this spring we may have some smaller groups, but as the CDC guidelines start to peel back, you can anticipate larger and larger groups, but we're still averaging 36 to 38 passengers on a 53 passenger coach. Our tour managers are being trained to deal with the cleanliness and the operational logistics when it comes to if there is a positive case, for instance, how we're handling that. So we are actively consulting with the CDC to make sure that while you're even on tour and afterwards, that you are well taken care of by true professionals. The use of face masks currently are mandated on the coach itself. But that may also change. I think the frustrating part about this is that a lot of the information that's out there right now may be totally different in a couple of months. So what I'm sharing with you is relevant for today, but I'm optimistic, and especially as we consider the numbers increasing with vaccinations and then the cases actually going in the opposite direction. That's exactly what we're hoping for. So that hopefully by May of this year, the Standard and Poor's had indicated that we should be near herd immunity for the entire United States, which is exceptionally positive. Traveling with Collette, I know that you have a lot of options out there. Travel Leaders is one of the most reputable travel agencies here within Minnesota, and they have a lot of options. Collette and Where We Stand is truly a 4-star operation. And a lot of the things that you see listed here are just naturally included in the tour. I can say with all honesty that we're never the least expensive option, but that is a good thing because all of the must-see elements of the tour are already included. You may find other packages that are less expensive, but then you get onto their tour and realize that all of the things that you really want to see are just optional tours, which brings that price up. We just naturally include everything so that you know that you're seeing everything that you want to see while balancing that with some free time as well. So usually about every other evening is free and available for you to go out and explore, with the understanding that you have a tour manager with you every step of the way to point you in the right direction. So we're going to be talking about Ireland. I think this is a perfect example of a foreign destination, an international destination that is almost as easy getting around as it is here in the United States. And I can honestly say that of all the places that I've traveled, the Irish people are not only some of the most welcoming and warm and beautiful people that I've ever met, but they're truly and honestly encouraging and supportive of American tourism. There is so much back and forth between Ireland and the United States with heritage, lineage. My wife is of the Mooney clan, for instance, and there's so much of the United States that was created by immigrants from this amazing country. So they warmly welcome us and we warmly welcome them, and it's a beautiful country to say the least. The Shades of Ireland tour is our signature Ireland tour. It's 10 days long, 13 meals that are included. And just to give you an example of some of the price ranges here, in March, if you were to depart, the land portion of this is $22.99. And then it goes all the way up to high season, which is $27.99. So to give you an example, the high season is arguably when you have the best weather, but for Ireland in and of itself, the temperature fluctuates no more than about 12 to 15 degrees year round. So if you were to go in April, for instance, which is kind of that sweet spot between the high season and the off season, which is like February and March, you're going to get great weather, but you're also going to have lower prices and probably fewer people. So that's when I would suggest you go, is either in April or maybe in October, which is another time to go. I prefer the spring because you get to see all the baby sheep that are being born all over the island. And this is a little snapshot of the tour itself. Again, this is a 10-day tour, but that also includes the international travel getting there. So Dublin for 2 nights, Waterford, which is the oldest city in all of Ireland. It was founded in 918 by some shipwrecked Vikings, and they just made shop there. It's a beautiful town. It's a walled city, and it's also one of the most historic and beautifully maintained cities that you'll find there. We'll be heading to the south towards Blarney, and then eventually the Ring of Kerry and Killarney, where you'll be spending another 2 nights. And then on to the Cliffs of Moher, Limerick, Galway, and then eventually up to King's Court. Looking at this map, it looks like King's Court is a long ways away from Dublin. The primary reason we stay in King's Court on our last night is that not only do you get to stay in a an actual castle, but it's just north of the international airport, which is north of Dublin. So you're already halfway there by being in King's Court, and it's a nice countryside location so that you don't have to go back into the bustling city of Dublin. The other cool thing about this, and definitely inquire within with your travel agents about this, but you can do pre and post extensions. So if you're already flying over there, why not spend a little extra time afterwards and go to Edinburgh? Or if you want to fly into London a couple of days before the tour begins and then meet up with your group in Dublin once you're finished with your 3 nights in London, and we can help arrange that. So this is the fair city of Dublin itself. Naturally, we have very strategically located hotels that are oftentimes right in the heart of the downtown area. The nice thing about it, you're right along the Liffey right here. Our hotel is centrally located so that you're literally within walking distance. You'll of course be taking a tour of the downtown area, but on our tours, you can go one of two directions. So this is what we call choice on tour, which gives you some options as to how you experience your time. So you can either do a Dublin by coach tour or a walking tour. And you don't have to decide that now. I would probably suggest seeing Dublin by coach only because you get a broader perspective of how large the city is, because the very small downtown area is easily walking distance to everything else that you might want to see. But in order to get to certain other destinations, it's best by coach. This is O'Connell Street. This is one of the many places that you'll be going on this coach tour. And Grafton Street. If you're going to be doing any shopping, I wouldn't do it in Dublin. It's one of the most expensive European cities in Europe. But I would wait until you get outside of Dublin and into the countryside where you're dealing directly with the families and the actual artists who create some of the beautiful things that you'll be seeing along the way. As you head outside of Dublin, I know that that was a quick gloss over, but we do have 3 tours to address here. We're going to be heading south through Kilkenny on the way down to Waterford, as we had already talked about. If you've ever heard of Waterford Crystal, obviously it's an internationally renowned lead crystal glass company. So with that being said, you can either go to the crystal factory itself, or if you're more interested in history and learning about the earlier years of this beautiful country, you can go to the Medieval Museum. And this is another one of those examples of choice on tour. But to actually see the crystal factory and these second, third, sometimes fourth generation artisans creating these amazing creations is quite impressive. And there might be a gift shop at the end of your tour. Or you could just go to the Medieval Museum. There is a glass of wine involved here as you get to talk with costumed interpreters and learn more about the underbelly and the medieval history of this beautiful country. And then no tour would be complete to Ireland without going to Blarney Castle. You can go all the way to the top and kiss the stone up there that apparently will give you a gift of gab or eloquence, depending upon how you look at it. But it is not ADA accessible, so you will have to navigate those steps yourself. And then this is Killarney and Killarney National Park. We'll be spending 2 nights here. This was the very first national park in all of Ireland, and it was donated by a very wealthy family in the 1960s. We're staying in the small town of Killarney, which again, right downtown, walking distance to everything that you want to see, while still having the opportunity to get out into the national park itself, as well as the area. And this is what I love, the juxtaposition of Ireland. It's one of the most green countries I've ever seen, but then the backdrop of all of this stone is a beautiful contrast. So you'll see a lot of old castles, walls, just history in the making and from years ago. So to see that juxtaposition between the green and the stone makes for brilliant pictures. If you like taking pictures, this is a great place to go. And then this is the coastline. This is where you can be very thankful that you have a professional driver taking care of the driving, because not only are the roads very narrow, but I think everyone here is direct descendants of Mario Andretti, or at least they pretend to be. So um, it's better left to a professional to do the driving on these thin roads here while you can sit back and relax and enjoy these scenes. And then we're going to be heading north from this area in Killarney all the way up to the cliffs of Moher. This is breathtaking. These cliffs are over 700 feet tall and continue to be weathered by the North Atlantic. But it's at moments like this where you can stand up and have the breeze brushing against you and look out and realize that you are in the middle of the ocean. Ireland is not a very big country, but the greatest part about that is that you're not spending that much time actually traveling from point A to point B, which is really nice. You're more exploring outside, really enjoying feet on the ground type of experience. Here's King John's Castle as we get to our Limerick home for the next 2 nights. And this will be kind of our stopping off point to go to other places such as Galway and the City of Tribes. This central area is known as the Burin, and it's kind of a moonscape, but it really indicates just how diverse of a landscape you can find here in Ireland. There's a lot of stones out here, as well as what can be used for pasture, but it is really beautiful and just a stark contrast to the nice green rolling hills that you'll see in further south of here. And then this is the City of Tribes. They have international music festivals here. There's a great food scene here. You'll be spending an afternoon here before returning to Limerick for the evening. And then, of course, what tour wouldn't be complete without seeing sheep? Do it in the spring. Trust me when I say this. One of the most beautiful and endearing things we ever saw is when my wife and I were there in March, when all of these baby sheep were just starting to be born, and you could just hear them crying off in the distance everywhere that you went. And by the way, they are so cute, but they also produce some amazing woolen goods that you can also buy while you're there. So whether it's sweaters or gloves or scarves, Ireland is pure sweater weather through and through. We come from Minnesota where it gets negative temperatures. There, it's probably going to be about 50 to 55 degrees and overcast the entire time with a slight chance of rain the entire time. And if it rains, just wait 15 minutes because it will pass over and then it will be partly cloudy again. And that will be Ireland and your entire experience. I've been there several times and that's all I've ever experienced, but you have to consider we're in the North Atlantic. So you're not going there to hang out on the beach, but you can definitely take advantage of the wonderful and beautiful sweaters that they have to keep warm. You also learn about the Irish whiskey that comes from here, Bushmills and Jameson, just to name a few. This is an enormous and integral part of their economy as an export, and they export it all over the world, and it is delicious. So if you have any interest in that, you will be learning about that as we stop by a distillery on our way to King's Court. And this is your farewell hotel. This was our final night in King's Court at the Cabra Castle. What an amazing way to end the tour. And then the following day, very leisurely, just making your way back to the airport. One thing you should check into, and we've already discussed this, is talk with your travel agents about the opportunity to either spend extra days afterwards or a couple days beforehand. Ireland is really easy, quite honestly, driving. So if you wanted to rent a car from here and head up to Belfast and into Northern Ireland, you could easily do that. So just consult with your travel agent and they can help you out with that. The next, oh, these are the official extensions that I was telling you about. So this pre-tour extension allows you to spend 3 days in London before coming over to Dublin. And of course, seeing the Thames River and Big Ben here, Kensington Palace, the Tower of London, where Sir Thomas More was incarcerated for many years, and just classic London. I figure if you're already going to be there and you're so close to London and Edinburgh, which is the other post extension, why not? I think the cool thing about travel, especially starting off with an escorted tour, is that you not only get your travel legs going, but you gain that confidence being in a group. And then once you get finished, you're like, "Ah, this is easy." And all you have to do is follow a map. Most rental cars nowadays have the GPS systems in them, or you can just take a train and kind of experience it that way. But again, just consult with your travel agent to see what you might be interested in doing. Here's another literary city here, the city of Edinburgh. And this is quite similar to Dublin and London. They're just iconic cities that are a must see if you're ever in this area. And the Royal Mile is something that is forgettable. So be sure to check these out. We can easily arrange that for you. And if you have friends and family that are traveling, let's say from California or Texas, we can also help them come along with you. So the second tour of three tours that we'll be discussing is Irish Splendor. So we went from the Shades of Ireland, which is a 10-day tour. This simply is an abbreviated version of the Shades of Ireland. This is an 8-day tour. There are 8 meals included, and this starts off at $13.99 land only. That's a screaming deal. So for under $2,000 with air, you could have yourself an 8-day adventure to Ireland. Some people just want to go there just to say that they've been there. You don't have to spend weeks on end traveling. Sometimes 8 days is enough, and this is designed more in that shoulder and off season to give you those competitive rates. Because whereas before Ireland used to be just June, July, and August, and maybe September, people are now traveling well into October and November. The only months actually that we don't have offerings for is December and January. You can go as early as mid-February, and that's when you'll find some screaming deals. And remember, the temperatures in February are not going to be much different than if you were to go midsummer, high season, when everyone is traveling there. So if you don't mind bundling up a little bit more, the difference in between 65 and 50 is not much as long as you have a nice sweater to keep you warm. So we do spend one night in Ennis. That is a change in this. It's not Limerick, and we do not stay in Waterford on this trip. But you do see a couple of items that are unique, like the Rock of Cashel. If you study any kind of religious history, this is where St. Patrick kind of made his mark, and you can learn all about that as you come on the tour. And then the peninsula here, you'll see several different peninsulas. The previous tour that we talked about was the Ring of Kerry. This is the Dingle Peninsula, which is just as beautiful. There's essentially 3 different peninsulas that stick out in southwestern Ireland, and this is one of them. And then Sleehead Road, this is just beautiful. But again, it reminds you you're in the middle of the North Atlantic, and you could only have coastlines like this and this much green if it wasn't for all of the rain that comes through here and the proximity to this area. And I would say, thankfully, too, the bangers and mash and the meat and potatoes type of cuisine that traditionally was a part of Irish heritage, still there, but they have definitely expanded and graduated to that next level. So you can get some amazing James Beard awarded restaurants at some of these towns, fresh seafood through and through, and just a really enjoyable culinary adventure. And then again, getting back to the distilleries, we will be visiting a distillery while we're in Ireland so that you can learn about the Irish whiskey that is produced in this area. And then last but not least, the Cabra Castle. So again, this is the Irish Splendor. It's an 8-day trip, and it ranges in price between $13.99 and $18.99 in high season. And then this is our last tour that we'll be discussing, and then we'll have some questions at the end if you do have them. exploring Britain and Ireland. So Ireland, or at least Northern Ireland, is part of the United Kingdom. So exploring Britain and Ireland is a great opportunity with 15 days for you to get out and explore a little broader of the British Isles, if you will. So this is an amazing tour that includes England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. So really the only thing missing here is Northern Ireland. And you could do that if you wanted to after you're finished. You could do a post extension. So of course you start off in London. This is the Thames River and of course Big Ben and Parliament right in front of us. Westminster Abbey. There may, I don't know if you watched the recent Oprah episode, but it wasn't them that got married at Westminster Abbey. It was his brother that got married to Kate Middleton at Westminster Abbey. And it's an active church as well. It's not just for weddings. And this is the Tower Bridge right along the Thames. The cool thing about it, again, we have a location and a hotel right downtown. So you're walking distance to all of this. What I love doing when I'm in big cities like this is hitting the pavement. Naturally, we're going to have a tour of the entire area with a step-on guide. You'll have your tour manager with you every step of the way for each and every one of these tours. But there's always a little bit of free time in the afternoon and evening on certain nights where you can go out and explore and do what you want to do. So if you want to hit the theater, the London theater scene is amazing and comparable to New York City. The food scene here is amazing and truly international. If you want to just go to a museum, I particularly love history, so going to the Tower of London would be an amazing experience. So this right here is your tour in a nutshell. You fly into London for 2 nights, and then you head west through Stonehenge, Bath, and then on to Cardiff, where you'll spend a night in Wales before crossing over to Southern Ireland. And then you cross over again into Wales, and then eventually into Scotland, where you'll be seeing Edinburgh, then down to York, Stratford upon Avon, and then eventually leaving out of London. So this would be another one of those tours. If you do have time on your hands, fly in a day or two early. It helps with jet lag. It's an easy flight too. Most often we can find direct flights from Minneapolis to London, or from Minneapolis to Amsterdam, Amsterdam to London. So Minneapolis is a great gateway. And if you want to use your frequent flyer miles, for instance, we can do that too. Just consult with your travel leaders, advisors, and they will point you in the right direction. I'm sure you've seen this before. This is what I love about the British Isles, is the extensive and dramatic history that goes hundreds and thousands of years back. So Stonehenge, of course, is a must-see as you go through this area. Bath is a brilliant and beautiful city. And it's towns like this in the countryside that you really are reminded just how beautiful it is. But the architecture and everything that surrounds you reminds you that you are not in Minnesota any longer. Again, I'm a huge history buff. So when you're surrounded by history, you're literally walking on streets that are older than the United States. That's really impressive. And again, you'll have the travel tour manager with you every step of the way to share with you the history, the culture, and point you in the right direction for your free time activities. Blarney Castle, again, we've talked about Ireland. I'm just going to gloss over this park again, or this point again. But we now are getting back into the UK, into the Welsh countryside. So we're now in Wales here. And then we're eventually going to be heading north to Edinburgh, that is a literary capital. There are only about 4 of them in the world. And I think one is in Ames, Iowa, if you can believe it. But Reykjavik, Iceland is the only one that is not native English speaking for literature. And this is the Edinburgh Castle right here, which sits on top. It's at the end of the Miracle Mile. Just beautiful. And these are just some of the towns that you'll be going through. Again, every single day is an adventure. as you go through the countryside of some of these areas, that's the adventure right there. You don't always have to be walking around. Sometimes it's just driving from point A to point B and taking pictures and enjoying the commentary and hearing the stories of the towns that you're going through. And that's the end. I'm sorry for the abrupt end there, but um, traveling with Collette on a different level is a really comfortable and a really enjoyable way for you to not have to worry so much. So it starts with private sedan service. We've already talked about personalizing your adventure with elite airfare, pre and post nights. If you want to upgrade your economy ticket to first class, surprisingly, 20% of all of our passengers actually do that. And it doesn't have to be first class where you're spending thousands of extra dollars. It could be just comfort plus that gives you a little extra leg room or maybe an exit aisle. This is really important, and this is why you should travel with us. We have travel protection and an insurance that allows you to cancel for any reason up to 24 hours prior to departure, no questions asked. In the last year, Collette Travel has reimbursed $160 million of business. I guarantee you that there are other companies out there that have been giving partial credits or vouchers for future travel. I proudly say that Collette has done the right thing and just simply given people's money back. And that's the way it should be. We have become more and more flexible with how you as a passenger and a person react to this pandemic. It's obviously a very difficult time right now, but all of the trends and all of the numbers are indicating that we are going to have a robust recovery beginning approximately in April and moving forward. So we will be traveling again, but with travel protection like this, you can rest assured that if anything happens, you can just cancel and get your money back minus the insurance. If we cancel the tour, you even get your insurance money back. So really no risk to you. And then you're covered while you're on tour as well. And I can guarantee you that yes, if you were to, for whatever reason, test positive for COVID while you're on tour, your insurance covers you. Okay. So if you have to be holed up in a hotel room for a week, you are covered by your insurance. The finer details will be shared with your travel advisor, but it's good to know that you're covered in every respect, even while you're on the tour. We have a loyalty program as well, because we find that when people go with us and travel with us, they travel with us again. So if you enjoy yourself, you will automatically be enrolled in our loyalty program that will give you further discounts for future travel. A passport naturally is obligatory and mandatory for this tour or any of these tours. And just make sure that they're active for at least 6 months after you return to the United States. And then group web pages that we can create. Oftentimes Nora or the folks at Travel Leaders will have a web page that you can consult to kind of take a look at things, or you can just call them directly. So I thank you so much for joining me today. I know that you have a busy schedule, but this will be recorded and it can be passed on to friends and family if some other people weren't able to make it today. But I just wanted to say thank you so much. Enjoy this beautiful spring weather, and I look forward to traveling with you in the future. So have a great day.
Thanks so much, David. Wonderful job. If anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. And I'll try to get those answered for you. But it's wonderful. It makes me dream of European travels again. I've done England and Scotland, but I haven't been to Ireland yet.
No.
So it was wonderful looking at the pictures and kind of dreaming about what kind of trip I'd want to do. So that's great.
And I can honestly say, Nora, it's a beautiful destination, but it's the people that make it so endearing and have people come back over and over and over again. So you should not hesitate to go on these tours, and be sure to consult with your travel professionals about that.
Fantastic. Well, I don't see any questions right now, but everyone has got my email. If you do have any questions going forward, feel free to send me an email and I will be happy to respond to you. But David, thank you again for your time. And for all of you joining us right now, thank you very much and enjoy your afternoon.
Thank you. Have a
Bye,
wonderful day,
everybody.
everyone.